Welcome to my first monthly wrap up of 2024. In January, I set a reading goal for myself to finish reading and to read 10 books. I read all 10 of those books and I'm very proud of myself. These are all the books that I read or finished reading in January. But let me just reiterate, for majority of these, I'd already started reading them like last year and I just had been putting them off. So I did not just casually read all these books in 1 month. No, I basically finished most of them. And I will tell you the time frame of how long it took me to read each of the books. I think I read quite a few different types of books this month. I finished reading 2 classic books I'd been in the middle of. I read a thriller, I read a dystopian book, I read a fantasy book, I read a Christmas romance, I read this sort of drama romance, I read this romance, but this book is so much more than that. It deals with so many questions of just class and society and friendships and growing up and changing and everything. I read this, which it had some like fictitious memoir elements in it as well, and this romance here that deals with heavy themes. I have a few like, why did I put random little bits of paper? I have no idea why I did that. I figured out the first thing that I put in, it was just they were talking about a specific drink and they said how to make it. I think I've had something very similar to this. I had this one drink and I'm pretty sure it was this and it was really good. Okay, let's talk about the books now and in order of which I read them. The first book that I finished in January was Beach Read. Now I went on vacation and this was one of the books that I genuinely read on the beach, even though as much as the title would suggest and this cute little thing, oh yeah, 2 writers, 1 holiday, a rom-com waiting to happen. No, it's not as lighthearted and fun as you would think. This book follows January and Gus, and both of them are dealing with pretty heavy things. Now, January is a romance writer and Gus writes literary fiction, and basically they swap genres and try to write each other's genres, and then they go and like research together. Not only did I also read this book literally on a beach, when I walked to the beach, I listened to the audiobook version of this. I would say there are definitely parts in this book that were cringy. There were, but I just ignored them because I just think that it was just better for me to just ignore them and brush over them and pretend they didn't happen. January did sometimes really get on my nerves a lot, but overall there were many beautiful quotes in this book, many beautiful scenes in this book that I obviously did not tab because I do plan on rereading this at some stage. I do think that I perhaps did enjoy this book more because I did read it while I was on vacation. I would say that while this book looks like it's just something fun and easy, there is a lot more to it than that. And I think if you're not expecting that, then you're going to be like, I just wanted a fluffy romance, because this is not just a fluffy romance. There are definitely some fluffy romance aspects, but for the most part, no. There is some epilogue discourse in this book because different people have different endings to the book. I personally, my ending of the book, I'm happy with the way mine ended, because other ways that this book ends, other different versions, everything is just so cookie cutter and just so much like every other romance, so I'm glad that mine one was not like that. There was definitely some points that dragged out. So basically, January, her dad dies. It's not a spoiler, we find out almost immediately, and he basically leaves her this letter, and she doesn't want to read the letter because, well, then she's got nothing left of him and everything. She always mentions the letter and she doesn't read it, and that gets dragged out the entire book, and the point is that we keep reading to the end. But I would say that I didn't enjoy this book enough that I was just like constantly reading it and just constantly like flipping through it, because I was just like, I need to know what's in this letter. I didn't really care that much. My favorite quotes in this book, I have he fits so perfectly into the love story I'd imagined for myself that I mistook him for the love of my life. This quote is something that I definitely need to just keep rereading. If I were hit by a meteor while in the car with you, I would still think I went out on a high note. I think that is just so lovely, and I think the fact that it did have beautiful quotes overrides the really cringy quotes that I like. Ew, why would you say that? Okay, the next book that I finished was the Ballad of Songbirds and Snakes by Suzanne Collins. So this is the prequel to the Hunger Games trilogy. I mainly listened to this in an audiobook version, but I did switch between them. I watched the movie of this first, and I'm just going to say this. I am so glad that I did, because I read this book and there were so many things that were changed and were different, and I just know that if I was to have read this book first and then watched the movie, I just would have been like, why did they change this? Me personally, if I can, I'm going to try to like watch movies and watch TV shows first before I read them, because I just feel like in every single time I'm just disappointed. This book basically follows Coriolanus Snow, and in the Hunger Games trilogy, he's the president. He's President Snow. This follows Coriolanus when he is younger, and he actually has to be a mentor to one of the people. Her name is Lucy Gray. She's from District 12. He was definitely very unintentionally funny. Sometimes he would say things and it was just like, that's such a random thing to say, but he was kind of hilarious, but he's not supposed to be hilarious, but sometimes he was very hilarious. I really liked this book. I did imagine him in the book as how he was in the movie. All the people in the movie, I just imagined them. Part of me knows what it would be like to be in the Hunger Games. Just let me explain. I have very vivid dreams. I actually had a dream that I was in the Hunger Games myself. Let me explain the dream. So essentially, I was in this like gigantic supermarket. Like this was the biggest supermarket I've ever seen in my entire life. It was like 1,000 stalls in one, and it was really dark, and there was so many people around, and you know, there was the thing that was like, okay, you're gonna start like killing each other soon. And you know, as soon as like the siren thing went off, everything was like quiet for a few minutes, and then like people started dying. It's so that I can still hear the screams. I mean, I did watch like a lot of scary movies and stuff, but it was so real and so lifelike, and it was terrifying because I was running. Like, because people were chasing me in this dream that I was having, and it just felt surreal because in dreams, sometimes I can be like, this is such a dream, like obviously, but other times I'm so panicked. And I remember being in my dream thinking, this better be a dream, this better be a dream. And so I was like running, and then like someone set off a bomb. It was really scary and intense. You know how some dreams just take so long? Like that dream just took so long to get through. So yeah, I kind of, like, it was scary. But yeah, I guess I kind of like know a little bit what it's like to be in the arena. Next, I finished Daisy Haites. Now, I felt like I'd just been reading this book for so long. So this is the second book in the Magnolia Parks universe. This follows the same timeline as the first book, just in different people's perspectives. The first half of this book, I was just kind of like, this is like so similar to the first one. But then the last half, I really enjoyed, and I binge read like the last half in like a few days. I've said this once, but I'll say it again. Sometimes I wish there were more descriptions of artworks and outfits, because you don't know what anything looks like unless you look it up yourself, because it's just lists like exactly the thing. So if it's an artwork, it just says the artwork and the artist, but it does not say what it looks like. This book just basically follows Julian, Daisy, and Christian's perspectives. I love Julian Haites. Yes, he did some things that I'm just like, why would you do that? But I still love Julian Haites. Some things that I found annoying about this book was in Daisy's perspective, she does have footnotes at the bottom of every single page. There were definitely some very notable quotes. If I had to reread Magnolia Parks and Daisy Haites again, I would read them in tandem. I'm doing that for the next two books. If I could redo it, I would have read them in tandem. Then you get to see specific situations from all perspectives. I definitely like this book a lot better after I gave it a break, because I read Magnolia Parks and then like almost immediately started reading this, and I feel like I should have given it a little bit more time. This cover is amazing. Next book we have is Where He Can't Find You. I will explain what this book is about in a second, but all I'm going to say is if you like Scooby-Doo, you will like this book. I felt like it was giving such Scooby-Doo vibes, you know, like the gang and them trying to figure out the monster mystery and people's like monologues when things are being explained. In this town, it's this town called, they live in an interesting town. What, it's like Despair or something. Doubtful. The town they live in is called Doubtful. Isn't that so funny that the page I literally opened up had the exact thing I was looking for? People go missing, and then there's like red thread, and then some people are like, it's this crabby old man who's doing it. Well, he's not even old, but there's this guy who's responsible for it, but then other people are like, no, it's a monster. And so basically just sort of going through this, trying to figure out like what's going on. I would say it's definitely more of a mystery than like a thriller. There are definitely some parts. This is also YA, but I think it's mainly just the characters that are YA. There are definitely some scenes where I'm like, I feel like that's pushing the boundaries of YA. And if it was in like an adult thriller, like no one would bat an eyelid. No one would be like, oh, that's so like little kiddish. This author, she writes a lot of supernatural books. I like that this book does have illustrations in it, because I adore when books have illustrations. Let me show you something like that. I don't think this is really one of those books that you really get connected to any of the characters. You mainly just sort of, oh, there are the characters, and you're mainly following the plot and just everything. Like, I did care about the characters. Also, there are definitely some parts I feel like were just glossed over and could have been gone more into depth with. If you definitely want to make this book scarier, you need to make your environment scary. I have just watched so many scary movies and watched so many scary shows that I'm very desensitized to things. So I have to like literally make my actual physical environment very scary so that what I'm reading is scarier. So some ways to do this is by, you know, obviously reading, watching things by yourself, being by yourself, having all the lights turned off, having like, this is kind of dangerous. Actually, maybe don't do this. I almost just said something, but I feel like that could be dangerous, so I'm not going to say it. But just basically just do things to make your environment more scary. Oh, this is not dangerous, but like have your blind up. I was definitely going to say a few things which I do, but I'm not gonna tell people because I don't want to put anyone in dangerous situations. It was very much Scooby-Doo vibes in like the best way possible. I used to love Scooby-Doo. There's like a specific version of Scooby-Doo that I really liked. But you know, I liked all different kinds of versions. Like I had Scooby-Doo movies, so I definitely like Scooby-Doo, so it's kind of nostalgic. This cover, don't really love this cover though. Like what on earth is that? I actually did buy a few more books from this author because I like the fact that they're different. The next book that I finished in January was Lovelight Farms. Now I didn't have very much left of this to go. This girl, Stella, has a Christmas tree farm. Basically, they are running out of money, so she enters this competition and she says that she runs the farm with her boyfriend, which she doesn't have, but he's like, I'll be your boyfriend. Just like if I was to recommend Friends Lovers, I wouldn't say this because I wouldn't say it's like that much Friends Lovers. Where did all my notes go for this book? They both already liked each other from the start, and I feel like there was so much inner monologue. I just wish the Christmas vibes were a bit more. I would say this book was just okay. I mean, it was the author's debut novel, The Assassin's Blade, which is the prequel to the Throne of Glass series, and it just has like 5 novellas that are on the back. We just follow this girl, well, this assassin called Selena and all her adventures, and this book is YA, I believe. I really like the fan art that goes with this book. Some of it is very painful. I also don't know why I expected a happy ending, considering this is a prequel, and there is literally like so many more books after this, but I thought that the prequel was gonna have a happy ending. I don't know why I thought that. I have read the start of Throne of Glass before, and I was like, oh, she's like jailed, but at the end of this book I was like, no, I reckon everything is gonna work out. I was wrong. I'm definitely more invested in Selena's life now for Throne of Glass. Now that I've read this, there's a lot of discourse surrounding like when you should read this, and should you read it first or third or like fourth or at the end, I don't know. But I'm glad I read it when I did, because now I actually care about her character, and because it's novellas, there's so much shorter. That's like one novella. I liked it. Okay, next we have The 7 Husbands of Evelyn and Hugo. This book follows this news reporter, Monique, interviewing this iconic actress from like the 60s, Evelyn Hugo. And Evelyn is gonna do this sort of tell-all feature where basically Monique is gonna write her memoir and every single thing about Evelyn's life. At first, I was skeptical when I was reading it because it just felt like off at the start. I was like, why does this feel like AI generated? The author wrote Monique in a way where she is self-aware but doesn't do anything about it. Like, she would just make so many harmful assumptions and would jump out 10 steps ahead of what Evelyn is saying, and Evelyn would have to be like, did you not listen to what I said? Or don't assume things about me, Monique. And I just get such secondhand embarrassment from her because it's like, why would you say that? Like, did you literally not listen? I like that this book has things like newspaper articles. So I'll show you like one on the first page. This is, you know, like, I like that it has newspaper articles. As time changes, so there's newspaper articles, and there's also like the normal part of the book where Monique is interviewing Evelyn, but then you get these parts here where then it's just Evelyn's perspective, like she has written the memoir herself. There's like a mini twist at the end. Evelyn's story was the most fascinating part. When I was reading it, I would read Evelyn's memoir and then we get back to like the Monique interview part, and I was just like, no, go back. Her life story is just so intriguing. This book was definitely very emotional. Like, this book, yeah, was definitely very popular back in like 2020, and I totally get why it was very popular. So the next book that I finished was Pride and Prejudice by Jane Austen. I read this myself and also sometimes listen to an audiobook version of this. I personally really like this book. I like the romance, but I also think that if you are looking for kind of like a modern romance, you won't find it in here. I said this before when I actually read it in a reading vlog, but someone did literally ask if there was smut in this. No, there is not. I'm just gonna put that out there just in case people were thinking, because that is a comment that I did see. There were many characters in this book that I wish. Have you seen the first Jumanji movie? You know, when all the animals come out of the game and they're just charging down the street. The many characters that I wish would have been laying on that street as the herd of animals stampeded across. I liked Mr. Darcy from the start. I liked that Elizabeth wasn't a doormat. She stood up for herself. Yes, it's a romance, but there is so much more. I would say there's a lot of drama in this book between a lot of characters. The next book I finished, I'm pretty sure I finished this the same day. It was Normal People. This book is one of those books that I stand by. You either like it or you don't like it. I personally liked it. I did not mind the lack of quotation marks. And I actually saw someone once say, oh, you know, I read an entire like chapter and then I realized that it wasn't all in a monologue and that was actually a conversation being said. Trust me, you won't have any problems with that, because it literally says on the like 5th line, oh hey, he says. If it was in a monologue, who would be saying that? Who would be having a conversation? I liked the look of friendships and relationships. Did I say connections? I really liked the connections that were explored in this book, and just the life stories, and this book just felt so real and raw, and I did watch the TV show first. I just think that if you are confused, to watch the show and then read this. If you are like really confused and don't know what's going on, because it does switch between the past and the present, it doesn't really follow like a linear thing. I personally like this book, but I understand that it is not for everyone. The last book that I finished in January, which I was so thankful for, I feel like this book was a mountain, and I finally scaled the mountain, and I have started to trek back down it. Crime and Punishment. I have been in the middle of this book since like June or July last year, and I finally got through it. Basically, it's about this ex-law student, Raskolnikov, and he is contemplating murder and morality and certain people above murder. How does he do this? He kills, he has a lady in mind, and she's like the scum of the earth, so he goes and kills her, and we find this out pretty early on. In fact, it's even on the back. He also kills someone else. It doesn't say that on the back. The novel of damnation and redemption evokes a world where the lines between innocence and corruption, good and evil, blur. I don't know, I really like this book. This book was just unhinged. Like, the characters so unhinged. The things that were said were unhinged. The things that were done were unhinged. The first murder scene is very graphic. I really thoroughly enjoyed reading this book. If there is a movie for this, Timothy Chalamet should definitely play Raskolnikov. Anyways, that's all I have. So I guess I'll see you in the next one. Bye!